What is a seemingly harmless parenting mistake that will majorly fuck up a child later in life? I found that when my parents teased me about stuff I was clearly uncomfortable with, it made me tell them less later in life. I have a good relationship with my parents, but I don't tell them lots about my life because it's easier if they don't know/tease about it. Never saying sorry to your kids. My mom only just recently started telling me sorry when she gets worked up. It's built up such a resentment for her over the years, and I also have trouble saying sorry myself because of it. Tell your kids sorry, especially if you overreact to something they did. This is my mom too. Sometimes it feels like she would rather jump off a cliff before admitting she was wrong and apologize. Treating your young child as a friend you're venting to. It's extremely traumatic to be your parent's diary. Not following through with your promises. If you told your child you were buying ice cream tomorrow in the hopes that they'd forget, and the next day, when they ask you, tell them no, they'll see you as unreliable. Ice cream is just the first thing that came to my mind. I'm sure someone else can explain better what I'm trying to say here without sounding so ridiculous. Mine is an extreme case, but my mom left me when I was around 3 and started a new family shortly after. My entire childhood was filled with I'll do's, and she never would. She was most famous for I'll pick you up tomorrow or I'll be there in X minutes and just never show. She did this on my 5th birthday. I remember it so vividly. My dad got me up before dark. He got me all dressed, did my hair, and took cute pictures with a little mermaid doll she had brought by a few days earlier. I was so excited. Then I went and sat on the front steps as the sun was coming up. I sat there all day long. I didn't want to move because I didn't want to miss her coming down the long driveway. Finally my dad's girlfriend told me it was nap time. 2 p.m. I said I couldn't take a nap because mom might come while I'm sleeping. The way she told me, honey, I'm sorry but I don't think she's coming today, just broke me. I still went and sat back on those steps. She never came. I still trust no one. I'll never forget that day. I worry I'll never be right after years of her doing things like that. It was like a moment ingrained in my head as when my heart broke and was never the same. Always do your best to do what you say for your kids. The belief that they won't remember because they're young. I remember. I don't quite remember all the words my mom said to me or all the specific things she did to me when I was younger, but I remember how she made me feel. That doesn't go away. Never telling your child that you were wrong and that you're sorry just never once occurred. My father never once said I'm sorry to me. He was human. There were plenty of times he should have. My kids have heard from me plenty. Once my brother was sent to his room by my dad after they got into an argument about something stupid. I used Google to prove my brother right and we both were grounded for being disrespectful until he found out we were actually right. He never ungrounded us until the week was over and only told me he was wrong. Moral of the story, being right is disrespectful. I feel like most of these responses fall under seemingly harmful. A seemingly harmless mistake is rewarding your child with something when they do something they already enjoy. Take, for example, reading. If a child just enjoys reading, let the child read without giving any reward. Once you start rewarding the child for that act, their intrinsic motivation gets replaced. It's called the over-justification effect. In a different vein of thought, making finances a taboo subject. Financial illiteracy can be devastating once entering adulthood. Want to keep your children from making your own money mistakes? Don't be too proud to teach them what those mistakes were. And to clarify, I don't mean robbing your children of their innocence by putting the weight of your debt on them at an early age, but rather teaching them how to properly budget their money as they earn it, how to build savings, what credit is, and how to responsibly manage it. Credit utilization. The danger of revolving balances, not using credit as an emergency fund. Teach them about predatory interest rates and the true cost of a loan. Set realistic expectations for costs of living, etc. On the same note, don't make your children feel like they're the source of all your financial woes. Talking about finances and complaining about finances are very different things. Don't smother your kids. My mom quit having her own life the moment my brother and I were born. She was an incredibly devoted and loving mother, was very kind to us, but when we were born she stopped having friends, did not work, and was home every single day from when I was born to when I moved out in my early 20s. She was very easy to upset because she had no other source of self-esteem, and any time I screwed up, and I screwed up a lot, it was as if I had levied a very personal attack against her. In the last 5 years or so, before I left, I don't think we had a single conversation that didn't drive her to tears, and I promise I wasn't that bad. I constantly felt cornered and stressed, and fell into depression as a defense mechanism, and she took my resulting lack of performance very personally, creating a very treacherous cycle that was only broken when I enlisted and finally got away. To this day I often feel like I'm a bad person who failed to live up to her love. Holy shit, it's like I wrote this. Sorry to hear you're going through the same thing. I started seeing a counselor, and she really helped me to process the issues I have because of my enmeshed family. Not congratulating your child when they achieve something. A friend of mine never got any praise from his parents growing up. Always felt that he wasn't good enough. Show the child that their hard work doesn't go unnoticed, but don't just show them love when they achieve something. They are good as they are, and always deserve love. When they achieve something, be happy for them, but if they don't achieve something, they aren't less worthy or something. Not creating a safe space for your kids to tell their secrets and make mistakes. When I was younger, I excitedly confided in my mom about my first boyfriend. But instead of calmly talking me through this, she immediately brought my dad in the conversation, and they both yelled at me and forced me to break up with him. My parents sat me down at the kitchen table and forced me to write a letter to my boyfriend and tell him that I didn't want to see him anymore. I cried the entire time. After I was done, they posted pictures of the letter all over Facebook and acted like it was so cute. Holy crap. I'm so sorry to bring public humiliation on top of the forced breakup. That is cold. I hope you are okay. Using them as props for jokes in public. Glad you got a kick out of it, Dad. Oftentimes our parents are our first bullies. Mocking them, laughing at them. Adults do it to each other all the time, but kids who haven't been immersed in the background cruelty of our culture for years don't understand that it's just the language of the land, and not that they themselves are particularly unworthy of respect. I got laughed at and mocked a few times as a kid, and that shit hurts a lot. There was one time I was trying to help a friend at their birthday by taking their presents to them, but all the adults and my parents thought I was being selfish and wanted them for myself, and joked and laughed at me and just ignored me explaining myself and carried on. I think that hurt my self-esteem a lot in the long run. Being mocked for wanting to help people, an instant classic. Well, realistically, it'd be a helicopter parent. You always want to look out for your kid, right? Make sure they're not doing things they're supposed to do. Walking without knocking? It ruins a relationship with a kid, because even though you have a sense of privacy, the kid doesn't and will always paranoid of anyone entering their room without warning. It ruins a kid. Would my mom let me do this? Is she okay with it? My parents were helicopter parents. I was not allowed to lock my bedroom door. My mom listened in on my phone calls. This was in landline phone days, and went through my personal belongings when I wasn't home, including reading the notes that friends and I passed in school. I wasn't allowed to talk to boys or date. I'm female. Doing this only prevents your children from learning how to form healthy relationships. You should teach your children how to do things, such as date, in a safe and responsible manner, rather than ban it. I wasn't allowed to have friends over, or go over to other people's houses my entire childhood. Then I turned 18 and my parents were flabbergasted at my inability to socialize, and lack of friends. Getting them involved in problems they have no control over. My parents felt the need to keep me in the loop regarding our pending foreclosure, and argue in front of me over which one was to blame. When I was 10. What possible reason is there to share that with a kid? I barely slept for months. I was convinced the cops were gonna bust in at midnight and throw us all outside. On the flip side, let your kids know if the family is facing an eviction. I was the only one home when the marshals came. Of course, my situation was more like my dad saying to me, "We are gonna lose our house because your mother won't pay the bills. Isn't she awful?"